exercising their constitutional rights.
At the bell tower at Capitol Square, normally the center of Virginia's annual Lobby Day. A hodgepodge of gun rights supporters, armed men in militia outfits, police, and maybe most of all, people with cameras. The warning of potential violence at state capitals leading up to Inauguration Day brought an air of tension to the streets of downtown Richmond.
We deal with gun rights in Virginia.
Pro-gun groups called their supporters to the Capitol, urging them to show up in car caravans and roll through downtown in support of Second Amendment rights.
Liberty and freedom are worth the risk. We cannot hide and not lobby the government because somebody might do something.
In pure defiance of this unconstitutional city ordinance.
A handful of armed members of anti-government extremist groups littered downtown, outnumbered at times by the flocks of cameras following them along. You may remember Richmond police posted signs saying guns would not be allowed near the Capitol building over the next few days, but you clearly saw that people were carrying them. Richmond police released a statement saying that the city and state ordinance bans firearms at permitted or unplanned events that would require a permit. They say since the groups that were carrying those weapons were fewer than 11 people, officers could not intervene.
Good afternoon.
The annual vigil for those who lost their lives to gun violence moved online this year because of the threats of violence at the state capitol. Gun control advocates say their message of safety too often gets distorted.
The government's going to come and take all your guns. When I've been in rooms where all they said is, if you're suicidal, you need to lose your gun rights for 14 days if you're deemed a harm or threat to yourself or someone else.
It's kind of tense times right now.
Farhan Ahmad walked by the scene downtown to get to work.
I just walked by, somebody was having conversations about their concerns as far as politics and such.
Ahmad says he did feel nervous seeing people walking around with guns, but thankful that all he saw was conversations.
Thankful for that, and I hope it stays that way. We need things to kind of cool down a little bit.
He's just very, very happy.
Starting a new family is a journey. Grayson Hirsch and his parents, Matt and Tiffany, have traveled a long road in 8 short months.
So throughout our whole pregnancy, we knew that he had a heart defect, that he had multiple heart defects.
Doctors told the Hirsch family, following his birth, Grayson's heart condition would require open heart surgery.
It's shocking, overwhelming, terrifying, sadness, guilt. I think you go through just about every emotion possible.
Those emotions came to a head July 11th last year, soon after Grayson arrived.
We had noticed in the morning that he was a little more junkier than normal when he was breathing. And then I was feeding him, and while I was feeding him, he started turning blue, stopped breathing.
You know, to this day still, it's extremely hard. Nobody ever thinks that that'll happen to them, let alone their own child.
Matt rushed Grayson upstairs to Tiffany, who works as an EMT with the Richmond Ambulance Authority and is trained in infant CPR. Her first time using it was to bring her own son back to life.
It was one of those things for me that I knew without it, he wouldn't survive. And the nervousness is kind of, gone out the window at that point.
The closest hospital was 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
Without it, probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Milestones that he met.
Family photos document what came next: open heart surgery and 25 days in the hospital.
Real cuddles with him.
For 12 of them, the Hirsches could not even hold Grayson.
He's not ever going to remember this, and I'm very thankful for that.
Months on now, doctors are telling the Hirsch family Grayson's heart is doing great, but will likely need at least one more surgery.
He does cry. We are very thankful to hear that cry. Today we're wearing our Heart Warrior shirt because that's what we are.
Heart Warrior is something of a family motto, since quick action and CPR got the Hirsches to this day.
It's more than important to our family. It is his life. It is it is what saved his life.
Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
All right, that works.
Old brick and mortar in the hands of a skilled, creative artist turns vibrant.
So that's awesome.
I mean, it looks amazing.
Local art curator Rosetta,
I think it's a good project to be a part of because it has a deep meaning.
partnering with artists like Genevieve DeMarco to bring murals like this one to spaces they haven't been before.
I think there's immense beauty inside of what people will call the inner city of the hood.
The project, titled More Than Art, Inner City Mural Project. Rosetta, partnering with private businesses and public spaces to bring artistic expression into new neighborhoods.
Ingenuity, there's innovation, there's creativity, and it comes from a necessity. You know, when you're pushed to create certain things out of necessity, that drives that needle.
RVA is renowned for its street art, but Rosetta says just like resources, certain spaces are historically left out.
You can't not have a Richmond without a Gilpin Court. You can't not have a Richmond without a Hillside Court. You can't not have a Richmond without a Creighton, without a Mosby, without a Field. You just can't. So when I say Carytown and Churchill and all these areas, yeah, these places deserve art. I love seeing art all over the city. What about these other places?
This mural off Hull Street serves another purpose for who it memorializes. Marcus David Peters, killed by Richmond police, and Eric McCorkle, killed in a shooting on Broad Street almost 5 years ago.
His ideas of grandeur, he had some ideas.
Eric McCorkle's mother and sister drive past here daily.
Whenever I pass it, I say, hey, brother, and I'm just so happy and so grateful. It meant the world to all of us, actually. He was so funny, so entertaining. He kept us laughing, and he was my heart.
A creative type himself. McCorkle's family says the 24-year-old was producing music, a path violence cut short.
My hope is that people will see this mural, see the light and the life in his face, and it'll be a reminder to stop the senseless gun violence. No one wins. Both families are at a loss. Both families lose. I really wish they would just understand that.
Art might not directly solve the biggest problems. Still, Rosetta and DeMarco see this kind of public expression as more than paint on a wall.
Even though both of the people that you see in these paintings have passed and the way that it went it's definitely not ideal. Whenever we're trying to memorialize them, I think it should be definitely a celebration of life.
Seeing his mom react to it, seeing his sister react to it, seeing his family members just lets us know that it's really more than art.
Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
You can have a seat anywhere you like.
A lunchtime rush at Tio Pablo, near the 17th Street Farmers Market.
Just 2 tacos? All right, sounds good. And anything to drink?
Reminiscent of pre-pandemic time.
And are you ready to order?
A good sign to Mariana Noriega. She's worked here for 6 years and says the weekend supper crowd is another level.
Oh, there's so many people here. It gets a little bit hectic.
Just a few blocks away, though. Bad signs near Shockoe Bottom. 2 fatal shootings in the early morning hours, 2 weekends in a row.
I feel so bad to hear that, you know? You go out and you don't expect like your family member not to come back.
2-week-old police tape near Crane Street, where police say 24-year-old Devonta McLaurin was shot and killed on June 20th. Then, just 7 days later, a bullet hole in this apartment door where police found a man shot on 20th Street. He was pronounced dead on scene. In both cases, police and family members tell us the shootings happened in the early morning hours as groups of people were leaving nearby clubs.
It all feels like a family here, like we're all so close.
Spates of violence occur near Tio Pablo every now and then, and Noriega says their team takes steps to look out for each other.
When we leave, we have a buddy with us, like a coworker that leaves with us, or we all go together.
Still, she says it's just a precaution, because she feels safe at most times of the day in Shockoe Bottom.
It sucks because this is a good neighborhood. Well, it's a nice neighborhood. A lot of people live here and come by. There's a lot of businesses, so it kind of affects us all in some sort of way. And are you ready to order?
A 16-year-old girl walking along Jank Road. A normal sight with an outcome that was anything but last October.
So on Sunday, October 18th, Aja decided to walk around the corner to the store.
Yasmin Bethea describes what happened to her sweet young granddaughter, Aja, after 2 vehicles collided that day.
And he hit driver number 2 on the driver's side, which spiraled out and hit Aja, knocking her off the sidewalk onto the grass. So the medical examiner said her neck was broken.
The words used to describe pedestrian crashes, Aja's family says, tend to gloss over the pain they inflict.
Today is her birthday. She would have been 17.
Aja's mother, Crystal, feels that acutely.
I'm more emotional about what we should have been doing today than what we're doing right now. I miss my daughter.
The group Bike Walk RVA found that even though driving rates were down during the pandemic, the Richmond Metro set a record for fatal pedestrian incidents in 2020.
We need to do something different to honor Aja and all the other lives that were lost due to motor vehicle I don't even want to call it accidents, because a lot of accidents wouldn't be accidents if we did something different.
The family planted a tree for Aja at Bouchal Middle Monday. It grows to honor her short life, but they hope also marks a change in how drivers behave on the roadway.
So wise people learn from other people's mistakes. So it doesn't have to be your loved one, someone else's loved one. So when I drive, I don't drive just for myself. I am more mindful that I have to drive for me and everyone else, because the rush is really not worth the risk.
Aja's family says they're working with other families who have lost loved ones to pedestrian fatalities to help spread this message. We'll also have a link to the Bike Walk RVA study if you want to look into it on WTVR.com. Working for you in South Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
I needed a bigger ladder.
Holiday light lessons learned for first-time homeowners Rebecca Fisher and Alexander Lawson.
When we had our old apartment, we had this one little column that we put the lights up. So as soon as we got the house, I already knew it was like, we're definitely buying lights. We're going to put them up.
They had designs to take theirs down this weekend.
Our healthcare workers have been on the front lines for 9 months now.
Until they heard about a new campaign by HCA Virginia. They're calling it Keep Your Lights Up for Healthcare Heroes. The hospital system is asking everyone to keep your holiday lights up and on through January 31st in support of our local healthcare workers.
So as they're driving to work or driving home from work, they can enjoy your beautiful lights and know that you're thinking about them on the front lines in our hospitals 24/7.
It might be a new year, but with new COVID cases and hospitalizations surging, local healthcare workers won't leave the pandemic in 2020.
There's so many unknown variables affecting our healthcare workers, our nurses, our clinicians, our physicians, with what we're going to do about childcare. How do we get to and from work safely? We know they're tired, but they just keep on going.
Spread a little happiness, a little joy, kind of keep those warm, positive thoughts about the holiday season.
Rebecca and Alexander see the campaign as a win-win.
Helps support procrastination.
All jokes aside, they hope their lights can serve as a little spark for those who see the toll of the pandemic each and every day.
Most of my family works in healthcare and my dad works at MCV, so I just want to say thanks for everything that they do for the community, for making sure the community's safe and working all the extra shifts and the extra hours and all the things that they have to go through. It's been a really tough time for a lot of them.
HCA is asking everyone to help spread the word by posting pictures of your lights online with the hashtag #LightsUpForHeroes. We'd also love to see those on the CBS 6 Facebook and Instagram accounts. Working for you, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
Pizza makes people happy.
Spreading happiness through pies.
It's comfort food, and we want to make people happy.
Okay.
Thank you, folks. Have a great afternoon.
The family business for Joe Conigliaro for 3 decades.
I have cooks that have worked here for over 20 years.
Bye, y'all. Thank you. Yeah, since I was little, I learned how to walk here. This is my place I grew up.
Joe has owned Sergio's in Midlothian for almost 30 years. Longevity, spurred by adapting. Prior to the pandemic, they had finished another expansion of their space.
Before the pandemic, we were 70% dine-in and 30% takeout.
It was scary in the beginning to think that we could lose all of this.
We ended up having to adapt, and people did not want to come out and eat anymore, even though you could put a few people in. We ended up switching it. We're 30% dine-in and 70% takeout.
The pizza business is well suited for takeout, so Conigliaro says that pivot and prior planning kept the business on solid footing.
We have been blessed. We are doing pretty good. We're paying the bills. We're still making money. We're not having to fire people. And we sometimes forget that people don't have money to eat. We're good to go?
Takeout orders from customers help keep Sergio's going.
You're a good man.
But this large order has a special destination.
Good thing.
Nothing smells better than pizza. This will be a real treat. And who doesn't love pizza?
20 pizzas, delivered to this South Richmond church, part of a Tuesday meal for people experiencing homelessness.
It's just so kind. It's so kind. That's, something that isn't in our budget, so.
It's National Pizza Day, and these pies are part of the Slice Out Hunger campaign. What up? Pizzerias nationwide, donating to people in need in their own community.
It makes me feel really excited that we can do that and give them a warm meal to put in their bellies.
So what we're doing in the grand scheme of things is kind of small.
The thing is, during the pandemic, Canigliaro's business has seen firsthand how small acts can really add up.
Everything helps. So if we treat this as we're one big family and we're all trying to help each other out, we'll make it to the other side. And that's everybody's goal right now.
Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. The absence of violin music, noticeable this Sunday at Mount Vernon Baptist Church in Glen Allen.
A gifted violinist. I don't mean he just played, he was good.
Reverend Jerry Parker knew the man gracing the strings since the 1980s, Henrico Police Captain Donald Lambert.
A heart for ministry. Donald's just a very compassionate person. Last Sunday, he was on the stage playing his violin.
A hit-and-run driver killed Lambert as he was out for a jog Saturday morning along Greenwood Road, according to witnesses and police.
Don was genuinely a great guy, and our division is going to miss him. And again, I just ask you all to continue to pray for the family and friends of Don Lambert.
Sunday afternoon, Henrico investigators announced an arrest in the case. They say 30-year-old Justin Regensburg was arrested after a traffic stop in King William. The 2 felony charges he faces stemming from separate hit-and-run incidents on Greenwood Road Saturday, officials say.
We're talking to, Don on a Thursday, and we're getting the news, on a Saturday. It's just something just so unexpected. The family is, is dealing with it. They have a lot of support.
God knows best. It's a good thing in his eyes, but from our perspective, it's a pretty dramatic loss.
Reverend Parker says Lambert and his wife went as far to host Sunday school in their backyard during COVID restrictions. Stories like it, he says, color the way people felt about Captain Lambert.
He's just a great person, at work, at home, at church, everywhere. Well, we're just beloved.
Going into the hospital, thinking it would be something minor.
Exactly 1 year ago Monday, Eric Bryant went to the hospital not knowing he'd become the 5th Virginian to test positive for COVID-19, a disease that basically shut his body down.
They didn't think that I would make it, through the night on several occasions, but I'm a living testament that, God's healing is real and I'm still here.
Weeks in the hospital, days spent on a ventilator and in a coma, led to Bryant's recovery and release. But to this day, the 52-year-old says his body just isn't the same as before COVID. Even just walking on his treadmill can be a challenge.
Some days I may be able to do, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Then some days after the first 2 minutes, I'm, exhausted. I'm sweating, as if I may have ran a marathon. You can't just go by statistics stating that, it affects the elderly or people with comorbid conditions, because I had none of that.
Physical effects Brian anticipated, but it's the mental and emotional toll he didn't expect to battle too.
It affected me in a way where I never thought it would, having the anxiety as far as being out in crowds and being out in public.
Although he hasn't been able to see his kids in person yet, Bryant cherishes things like virtual paint nights, thankful he can still take part.
To me, it's an everyday struggle. From day to day, I never know how I'm going to be, but I always get up, in anticipation of it, being the best day it can be.
He carries that attitude in part because of a prayer he says each morning, a moment of reflection for the nearly 10,000 Virginia families whose loved ones didn't survive.
I still mourn with them because I know that I could be a part of that number. It's a constant reminder, how blessed I am, but then also how fortunate, and how many people that have lost their lives, to this, dreaded disease.
Brian is a veteran and works as an analyst for the Navy, so he's set to get his vaccine through the VA very soon. Like many people who've been directly impacted by the virus, he's urging everyone to not let their guard down. It's why he's sharing his story with the world. Working for you, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
Another guard that could shoot the lights.
March Madness is almost here.
Just only telling people no.
Mark Overby owns Home Team Grill in the Fan. COVID canceled last year's NCAA basketball tournament, but the year before, in 2019, A prime example, Overby says, of just how big an event it is for sports bars every year.
It was an amazing day. It was the best day the restaurant had ever had, and it was just kind of surreal to survive it, if you will.
Surviving COVID limitations, a reality that now extends into March Madness.
You know, as far as protocols, we're doing the exact same thing we've been doing for the last 8 months. You know, we're not expecting any more people in here for March than we've had on any of the busiest days we've had for the last 6 or 8 months.
The NCAA basketball tournament traditionally provides the biggest few weeks financially at Home Team Grill. In fact, a Nielsen survey before the pandemic found a large percentage of college basketball fans watched at least a few games away from their home.
This is a big time for sports, but it's also a big time for the restaurant scene in Richmond in general. March and April begin, you know, when people start coming out again, and, you know, patio season starts, and it's just kind of the beginning of all new things in the city.
As the Hoos, Hokies, Rams, Flames, and Spartans battle for a spot in the Sweet 16, Home Team will have 16 tabletops available for groups in 3-hour windows.
I think it's going to be a good week. I think folks are excited about it. I think they're going to come out and have a good time.
Overby expects their to-go orders will see a jump this year.
Community's been really, really supportive.
While the look and feel of March Madness will definitely be different no matter where you watch, Overby is just happy it's back.
I think everybody's still going to be around each other. We're just all a little bit distanced, you know. And I got a little taste of it with the VCU and the A10. Well, everybody here was rooting for the same team and having a good time. We're just have to be a little louder because we're a little farther apart.
Whether you're going to watch the game here at Home Team or at your own home, the Madness kicks off Friday at 12:15 as the Virginia Tech Hokies take on Florida right here on CBS 6. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. During a head-spinning year, throngs of people have used public parks and green spaces as a place of escape.
We have all been spending, the last year plus trying to get outdoors.
Christina Vita, curator at the Valentine Museum, has been examining the past 150 years of parks and public spaces in Richmond. Their newest exhibit, Breathing Places, opens Wednesday.
I love to see how Richmonders have adapted our parks to our own uses.
Just like you can't ignore the joy outdoor spaces bring, Vita says history shows Richmond's earliest public parks in the 19th century left out or flat out banned people of color from using them.
White Richmonders were encouraged to do that, and spaces were created for them to do that, whereas Black Richmonders were forced to be either in those spaces as servants, working with white children, maybe even doing the labor of those, keeping those spaces.
The design of the current park footprint began in the 20th century and shows up in the health and heat impact maps of Richmond today, Vita says.
And it has a perfect correlation to heat islands today, to health disparities, to emergency heat situations.
While the exhibit walks you through all this history, it also explores the evolution of Richmond parks to this point. Vita says green spaces are living treasures, not locked in the past.
You can learn how actively they have changed over time, and then walk around the city, walk around your county. Understand that there is still time to go out and make an impact. You can make change. We've got centuries of Richmonders that have been doing just that. Let them be your example to go out and make a change.
If you'd like to check out Breathing Places for your own, it'll be here at the Valentine through January of next year. Throughout that time, they're planning some outdoor activities here out front, so if you happen to see them going on, just stop on by. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. The convention will be unassembled, meaning voting will take place at 39 locations across the Commonwealth, like this one here in Chesterfield County.
It's been one of the busiest weeks of my life, as you would expect.
Rich Anderson, chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia, is responsible for collecting and counting votes of up to 54,000 Republicans. That's the number of delegates approved by local party officials, who this weekend will decide the party's nominee for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general.
We have layered on multiple protections that I believe will ensure the integrity of the ballot.
Not only will Republicans choose their statewide candidates, white-hot attention will be leveled on that process. Some GOP officials nationally and in Virginia made claims of widespread fraud during last November's elections, but those claims were unfounded.
Politics is not a clean, orderly business, and so we'll just navigate through all that. But I can give my solemn pledge that I've been completely agnostic about the outcomes.
The ballots cast Friday and Saturday at voting locations will be counted at the downtown Richmond Marriott starting Sunday. tamper-proof tape on ballot boxes during transport, off-duty law enforcement on site, and 24/7 live streaming cameras. Security measures, Anderson says, will be in place.
And we owe it to our candidates, our voters, and the general public that there is legitimacy to all this process.
The party is using ranked choice voting, meaning if no candidate gets 50% of the vote, the lowest vote getter is eliminated and their votes redistributed to others. Anderson says at the request of some campaigns, they will hand count each ballot each time.
With 50,000 plus delegates, you could end up going through these ballots just for governor in a way where you're counting 250,000 ballots, one piece of paper, but with recomputations, the equivalent of counting 250,000 ballots.
The party says they've rented the Marriott Ballroom through next Thursday in case the vote counting takes that long. We'll, of course, have complete coverage throughout the weekend, and we have more resources right now on WTVR.com. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
Well, I don't do things to lose.
Millionaire businessman Glenn Youngkin, now the standard bearer for Virginia Republicans, after party members selected him as their nominee for governor. Youngkin ran as an outsider with zero political experience.
We were frustrated with where Virginia was going, and we thought it was just heading in the wrong direction under what Terry McAuliffe started and Ralph Northam was continuing. We were also really frustrated with the Republican Party and the fact we just haven't been able to mount a serious campaign to win.
Tuesday morning, former President Trump publicly supported Youngkin, saying they share many priorities. Youngkin says he's humbled by the endorsement and argues his, quote, common sense approach to big issues will bring in voters beyond the Trump base.
More jobs, a better economy, maintaining right to work, schools that actually teach our kids how to think, and oh, by the way, having a world-class law enforcement capability that in fact keeps our communities safe. These are not Republican issues. These are Virginia issues.
Glenn Youngkin doesn't understand the needs of Virginians because he's blinded by fealty to Trump.
Virginia Democrats quick to highlight the endorsement of the former president and Texas Senator Ted Cruz. They argue the average voter in Virginia is not like a Republican convention delegate.
So this Trump endorsement is going to be the first thing many of these millions of voters learn about Glenn Youngkin.
The whole question is, how is he going to be defined?
Political analyst Dr. Bob Holsworth says both parties will use Youngkin's wealth and political inexperience as messaging tools moving forward.
Because he has a minimal record. He has lots of resources. He seems to be a very good retail politician, comes off extremely well on television. And I think the Democrats are talking about him as a Trumpster, in part because they're a little worried about him as well.
Former Governor Terry McAuliffe is seen by many as the frontrunner for the Democratic nomination for governor. He says in a statement the endorsement by Trump shows that Youngkin will reverse the progress made by Virginia Democrats over the past 8 years. Democrats will pick their nominee in a primary in June. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
Sometimes it's just exciting to see the new and exciting ways that bicycles find to break themselves.
Just one reason Joel Alford calls his job the coolest.
It's not just a toy, it's a legitimate means of transportation.
The owner of Recycles Richmond on Carey Street says he's seen a definite shift in how cyclists are treated on the region's roadways.
Between now and 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, drivers are more aware and they're looking for cyclists more.
Since 2013, Bike Walk RVA says dedicated bike lane miles in and around Richmond have tripled. Still, they say accidents and fatalities involving someone on a bike have also gone up.
Our streets are not just for vehicle movement, they're for the movement of people.
The group's director, Louise Lockett-Gordon, says the feeling of safety on the road is one of the biggest obstacles they face.
That's the difference between getting folks who are interested but concerned, which is basically 50% of our population, from actually doing the thing and getting on a bike and biking somewhere.
We met Lockett-Gordon on Commerce Road in South Richmond.
Yeah, so this is part of the Fall Line alignment.
The Fall Line Trail will be a 43-mile multi-use path stretching through counties and cities from Ashland to Petersburg.
When I look at this corridor, I think about the potential for what we see on the low-line section of the Virginia Capitol Trail, introducing that green space.
Projects like it represent the next step, according to Lockett-Gordon, rethinking the region's roads to benefit multimodal transportation.
The climate impact, the health impact, certainly the economic boost that we've seen.
So we're adjusting the spoke tension to bring the wheel into true.
Back at Recycle, Alfred thinks more people would ride with more lanes, better driver education, and of course, a finely tuned tool.
It's an awesome and exciting and joyful thing, but at the root for us, it's a utilitarian thing that, that can take you places, whether it's on some cool adventures or just to work.
The state is celebrating Bike to Work Week right now, with many cities and counties holding events on Friday. Lockett Gordon says this region is waiting until later in the year to celebrate because of the pandemic, but she says any day is a good day to talk biking needs in the region. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
For the work that you've done, Lord God, of bringing this community together, Lord God, and establishing Westwood community, Lord God.
I think the Westwood neighborhood is Richmond.
Formerly enslaved African Americans established Westwood Village here after the Civil War.
Can you imagine 6 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, Westwood then becomes a part of the African American Odyssey of freedom.
Residents built houses, a church, a school,
becoming a self-sustaining, sophisticated economic, political, educational, and religious enclave.
Now, it wasn't always peas and carrots in Westwood. We did have external threats, political and physical.
A community that was ignored and isolated in Henrico. These were human beings who did not even have to have sewage, and they had to fight for that.
In the mid-1940s, the residents resisted several attempts by the city to demolish the community and replace it with a park.
Maya Angelou says, and still I rise.
We are indeed thankful to God for all of those who persisted, who would not give up.
This marker educates the public that this is sacred ground, consecrated by sweat, faith, hard work, blood, family, vision, and drive.
We've had history being made, history being recounted.
Remembering is cleansing, it's healing, it keeps you human, it keeps you connected to the divine.
And still a community continues to progress and grow and succeed and nurture and move into the future as they have persevered in the past. Thank you so very, very much for letting me speak.
I couldn't help from crying when I seen my brother's face.
A scheduled rally for justice for the men, known as the Martinsville 7.
I cried about it, I prayed about it, that, that the families will receive that closure. And today is history.
Morphed into a celebration.
They will say, like James Brown said, get on the good foot. Good God. Okay? We made it.
Back in 1951, these 7 black men from Martinsville, all put to death for the alleged rape of a white woman. The mass execution was the largest for rape in U.S. history, a sentencing first handed down by an all-white jury just 8 days after the incident.
These men were executed because they were black.
In a surprise to the families and advocates, Governor Northam signing posthumous pardons for the Martinsville 7, saying evidence shows they weren't given due process and their sentence was racially biased.
Thank you, Lord.
This reaction from James Grayson, the son of Francis DeSalle Grayson, now pardoned 70 years after the state put him to death.
As we sit here in 2021 and think about what happened, the rapid trials, the trials by juries that were all white men, it was wrong. I think we all, again, as a society, need to work together to do right for the Commonwealth.
And I want you all to put this on the front page of a national newspaper. I want to see this on Oprah. I want to see this on MSNBC, CNN. I want the world to know about the Martinsville 7.
A moment of jubilance for 7 families who quickly point out the thousands of other black families who won't feel this.
If we band together and work together and fight together, we can acquire the end that we seek. Because the Martinsville 7 is just one story.
There is an effort underway in Martinsville to memorialize the case and its significance. They want to do so through museum exhibits and possibly other memorials. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
I collect wind chimes.
When the remnants of Ida rolled through Petersburg Wednesday afternoon, Juanita Bowles' chimes got loud.
Oh, they was going back and forth, making a lot of noise, more than ever.
That storm sparked tornado warnings, heavy rain, and high winds near the Tri-Cities, but little in the way of damage.
A lot of wind and a lot of rain, but nothing major that like was going to blow away or anything like that. I wasn't afraid or anything like that.
At its peak, about 1,200 people lost power in this part of Petersburg along Crater Road. Dominion crews quickly tackling this tree branch on a power line. Workers in Hopewell saw the dark clouds and heavy rain, but were thankful to see the powerful storm roll past them.
Being born and raised in the country, my mom always told us, you get quiet when there's a storm.
In that quiet, Bowles says her thoughts drifted to people who really had to deal with Ida.
Yeah, it made me think of the people in Louisiana. We got it good here. With, besides the storm coming, your heart still goes out to the people that really has it bad. Kind of wish I can go there and help them.
What would you not do for your child?
The barefoot soldier won't sugarcoat it. Walking 1,200 miles without shoes is terrible.
It's so painful on my feet. I have nerve damage in my feet. I've had more blisters and cuts than I can count.
British Army Major Chris Brannigan is putting himself through this journey from Maine to North Carolina because of what his 9-year-old daughter Hosty deals with her entire life.
A genetic condition called Cornelia de Lange syndrome, CDLS for short. And the truth is that most kids who have CDLS don't go on to be independent adults.
CDLS is caused by a rare genetic mutation, which impacts multiple systems in the body and affects a child's mental and physical development.
What's scariest for us is that it gets worse. So at about age 12, kids start to go downhill a bit. They can start self-harming in very serious ways, that they need to be restrained. They can become mute, they stop talking. And we just can't imagine that for Hosty, so we're fighting every day to create this treatment.
Brannigan partnered with the Jackson Laboratory, raising money and awareness to launch clinical trials for a gene therapy for kids with CDLS.
She's just an amazing little, bubbly little girl,
Brannigan says Hosty was admitted to the hospital over the weekend after a seizure and almost cut the walk short. But he's back on the path in Virginia after she improved.
So I'm in the final third of this thing, and literally just before I met you, I was just thinking it'd be so good to put some slippers on.
Brannigan's sign asks a question of others, because carrying it along the road shows his answer.
We couldn't sleep at night knowing that we didn't throw everything at this. We didn't uncover every stone and try to do everything to make her as happy and healthy as possible.
Every week, it's something else.
It's been a strange 2 years to run a food business. Scott Aronson is the president of U-Crops, and he got a message from a supplier recently that might top the list.
It's Thanksgiving. Where's the turkey? Had ordered turkeys months ago. Everything was on track, and then the email arrived. We're not making them this year. We're sorry. We're not going to be able to supply them. And of course, we picked up the phone and called any other suppliers we have, and it was the same story.
U-Crop says shortages in transportation, packaging, and labor were to blame according to their suppliers. So it means no pre-cooked turkeys with their Thanksgiving meals this year.
The suppliers that we've been working with have said they're not making any pre-cooked birds.
Now, before you at home have a holiday panic, the pre-cooked distinction is important. Consider this from Consumer Reports. The nonprofit says finding fresh or smaller birds might be a challenge, and prices will likely be higher. But a USDA official told them using the term shortage is too far, since the stock of frozen turkey is still high.
Everything's on order, everything's been double-checked and triple-checked, but it could be the day before they're supposed to arrive. It doesn't come.
Supply chain uncertainty has U-Crop somewhat holding their breath when it comes to their Thanksgiving sides, which they still plan to serve along with a Thanksgiving ham for customers who might want to adjust with them.
Normally ham is saved for Christmas, but this year, maybe a new tradition, nothing like a good Thanksgiving ham.
In the world without youth prisons, we walk down the street and we hear happiness in the community and feel safe.
Lines from a poem written by these Richmond young people.
Children being healed instead of hurt.
Also inspired the design, now wrapping this GRTC bus.
Every community that this bus passes will be a safe and thriving space for youth to become everything that they dream and deserve to be.
The faces behind the masks appear on the side of the bus. Rise for youth activists who dream of a world without youth incarceration.
I think their creativity will inspire hope and love and freedom to everyone who sees these images rolling through our streets.
GRTC is proud to sponsor this bus and these youth.
GRTC's CEO says access to transportation plays a major role in justice reform.
When members of our communities cannot physically access these resources due to systemic barriers to transportation and mobility resources, then transportation and physical mobility itself becomes the primary and key determinant to social growth and economic mobility.
The bus is the latest installment of the Freedom Constellation exhibit, like those massive banners hanging from Richmond City Hall. The project uses public art to publicly imagine a world where all youth are free.
Every piece of city sort of infrastructure can be a platform to amplify the voices of those we need to hear from most. And this is an amazing step, a good step towards building that future. So.
It took until about 12:30 in the morning for the official calls to come out, but this room right here in Chantilly knew from pretty much when the polls closed they had momentum, and they felt like Glenn Youngkin would be elected the 74th governor of Virginia. Those results unofficial, but that does seem to be clear in what was a tight race. Youngkin taking the stage around 12:45 in the morning, clearly emotional, clearly excited about the results. He thanked his family, he thanked his supporters, and thanked Virginia for this moment. He also talked a lot about what he plans to do on day one. Things like cutting taxes, promoting school choice, and also supporting law enforcement. But a lot of the talk was also very theatrical and very focused on what Virginia could be. In Youngkin, Virginia Republicans see someone that could be the standard bearer of their party and send them on a momentum and trajectory to something they haven't seen in a long time. Remember, Republicans had not won a statewide race in Virginia since 2009. Youngkin addressing the crowd, thanking them once again, but also saying that this is a moment for all Virginians. Listening to a piece of what he had to say.
It's a vision where Virginians' power, the power that has historically resided in the marbled halls in Richmond, is spread out to the kitchen tables that are held together with the bond of spirit of liberty and freedom.
The chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia telling us he thinks Youngkin represents a reset for the party, and he thinks that will lead them to new heights. And it also might be aided by the fact that it looks like the House of Delegates might be in the Republicans' favor, or at least a very close tie. Many races still undecided at this point. For now, working for you in Chantilly in a celebratory mood here, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. We learned something about Glenn Youngkin this weekend. What he likes for breakfast.
2 eggs over easy, patty sausage, hash browns, and wheat toast. That's my morning staple.
CBS 6 got an exclusive interview with the governor-elect at this thank you breakfast in Henrico.
Listen, I think gratitude is something that's lost in America today, and I want to say thank you. And we've been hired to go do a job.
That job will soon be the top decision maker in state government. Youngkin's rhetoric surrounding transgender policies in schools led to criticism from some advocacy groups, worried Youngkin would work to roll back protections for the LGBTQ community. We asked Youngkin to respond.
We're focusing on our day one game plan. And so we're getting taxes down. We're going to go to work in education, make sure we raise standards. We, in fact, are going to invest in law enforcement, keep our communities safe, and we got to get our economy moving. This is where we're focusing.
So that's the focus, but I mean, is that something that, if presented to you, how do you think you would handle it?
As I said, there is a laser focus, and I think one of the big differences between an outside business guy and career politicians is that career politicians seem to lose focus on what they were elected to go do. I know how to deliver results.
Part of the results promised on the campaign trail, fixing failures at the Virginia Employment Commission. A recent report found major issues with the agency's staffing, efficiency, and leadership.
We're going to need new ways of doing things. We're going to have a change management system to deliver results. We're going to have metrics. We're going to measure against those metrics, and we're going to deliver outcomes.
Youngkin has promised to replace the entire parole board after CBS 6 spent a year reporting on concerns from victims' families. We asked Youngkin specifically what he wants changed.
So we make sure that we've got folks that are, yes, recognizing that second chances are part of our own philosophy, but we have to stand up for victims' rights too.
All right.
When the weather app says 60 degrees in December,
I was like, that sounds great, you know.
Victoria Hermosillo knew she and Paul would be spending time at Huguenot Park.
Yeah, I try to strategize like when we come to the park, especially with children who don't like to wear winter clothing.
This week marks the annual Winter Weather Preparedness Week, and Hermosillo knows where she can improve.
You know, the frost like on your windshield, and then so like I'm late to work sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I forgot about the frost. So yeah, that's something that I need to be more prepared for.
Here in Virginia, we know that the seasons can all come within the same week.
That's why Jason Elmore with the Virginia Department of Emergency Management says the time is now to get your car and home ready.
The colder temperatures are here. It's already getting down below freezing at night.
It's safe to say most of us don't drive a vehicle like this with tires on it like this. That's why Elmore says it's important to get your vehicle ready right now for the potential for icy roads.
Make sure you're getting your proper maintenance done on it, your tires checked.
Get that done by a licensed mechanic, Elmore says. It's also important to pack a winter weather kit.
Some of the items you could include in there are road flares, so if you do break down or get in an accident, you can notify people. Make sure you have, blankets, and it's not a bad idea to also have, maybe just a couple of bottles of water or some non-perishable foods while you're out there.
HVAC or heating sources at your house need to be checked out now, before the bitter cold arrives.
If you do happen to lose power, lose your heat, don't use some alternative sources like opening your stove or anything like that to warm your house.
Kind of like The Shining, there's no anything on the trees, everything's dead.
Hermosillo isn't a fan of late winter, but she'll be ready for what it throws our way.
I just thought you should just have common sense and, be ready for your day.
Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. Now that COVID vaccinations are up and restrictions are easing in Virginia, many families getting together for the first time in over a year. That's the case for a local woman and her daughter. They're using Richmond's iconic road race to mark the occasion.
It's been a long year, and I've been extremely careful.
Finding escape during a deadly pandemic has meant time outside for Carrie Wing.
I'm an outdoor person, so with the pandemic, as much as I could get outside and do a walk, jog, or just sometimes I get in the car and go to Robious Landing.
Wing works in fitness and lifestyle medicine, so she took every precaution to avoid catching COVID-19. Since the pandemic first hit Virginia, she has not seen her daughter or grandkids in person at all.
I'm in the healthcare field, so I'm aware of the load that the healthcare system has had this last year and a half.
As a volunteer at St. Francis Hospital, Wing got vaccinated several months back.
It was like that big aha moment, and I could relax.
It's been a long time since she ran in a competitive race, and 25 years since this photo of Wing and her youngest daughter running a race in Central Park.
Got the 10K email, and I thought,
Wing and her daughter are both now vaccinated, and next weekend they'll break 2 streaks while running the Monument Avenue 10K course. 25 years without racing together, and more importantly, a whole pandemic without giving each other a hug.
It's going to touch me in a lot of ways. I know it's going to touch her because we're both very independent women, but we also are very feeling and emotional. And so I know that it's going to bring out those feelings. And as I said, it'll be a big hug and a lot of tears, I think.
For a second year in a row now, 10K runners will tackle courses away from Monument Avenue, a sign the pandemic isn't fully behind Virginia.
Well, as I say, we're not going to break any records, but she said she's going to leave me way behind her.
But with vaccine numbers improving and restrictions easing, Wing says her family reunion race feels like it's marking something.
It's that moment, it's that final moment where we go, okay, we can move forward now, and let's take advantage of that, and let's enjoy each other, and let's go out and have some fun.
The Monument 10K courses are going to be at Bird Park and Dory Park and officially open up next Saturday. You can find final registration and course details at sportsbackers. A drag queen blasting Christmas carols. A show fit for December that'll once again serenade a local McDonald's drive-thru in the coming days.
Well, I loved it. I was directing traffic because people really were rolling down their windows. They were trying to film it on their cell phone, and McDonald's is a very strict drive-through as fast as you can policy.
Melissa Ross with the Richmond Ronald McDonald House is bringing the show back, along with her Christmas-themed garb on this steamy summer day.
Well, most of them are winter-related, but I do have a vest or two, so yes, definitely getting warm out here.
Tuesday marks the launch of 12 Days of Christmas in July. It's the second year of the fundraiser with the aim of raising $10,000 for the local Ronald McDonald House Foundation.
So last year was our first year. We tried to, key terms, shift and pivot with the pandemic.
Virtual daily raffle prizes continue in 2021, but the foundation is also incorporating in-person events, like the drive-through drag show on Monday the 19th, or holiday cocktail parties in the weeks to come.
We're bringing festive cheer to the summertime while we raise funds for families that we support in-house and in hospital.
If you're not familiar with that mission, those families could use a little cheer. The Ronald McDonald House provides affordable lodging and meals and support to families of kids in the hospital battling potentially life-threatening illnesses.
It's amazing the stories we hear from families. They forgot their toothbrush. They missed lunch, and here comes the Happy Wheels cart to give them snacks. Just seeing a friendly, smiling face and connecting with other families that are going through the same thing. It's things that we don't think about. We do actually decorate the whole house for Christmas so that the families and children can enjoy it, and so this is just another way to bring back that festive cheer and just keep everyone's spirits up.
There's going to be 12 days of Christmas in July. There will be raffle prizes every single day. You can buy tickets right now. Just go to this website. We'll also put that on WTVR.com. Happy Christmas in July, folks. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
Took your questions to an attorney today, and Jake, she says she is literally trying to clear the smoke.
Yeah, quite literally, Candace. She says really she doesn't even truly know what will happen and play out until these laws do take effect on Thursday. It's why she's urging anyone who thinks they might take part to do their research.
I mean, it's definitely a change, especially here.
On July 1st, simple possession and private use of marijuana becomes legal in Virginia. But what do you know about the rules?
I know that you could have a little amount on you.
You mean there's rules?
Because
What rules?
not a user.
We don't need no stinking rules. I just read about it like through emails and on Instagram and stuff. All I know is like the smoke in private for plants or whatever.
This highly informal Carytown survey still telling to Diane Toscano.
It's not a blanket legalization of marijuana. There are definitely places that people can get tripped up with this new law.
The Virginia attorney launched a Clear the Smoke campaign as an educational tool surrounding legalization here.
I think it's important to educate and let people realize this is not clear. And a lot of this, even if you asked me, we'll see how it happens in court.
For instance, the law allows someone to grow 4 mature plants at home, but selling the product or its seeds still illegal.
We've had people ask us, how does that work? Because that's going to produce more than 1 ounce of marijuana. And it doesn't say, the law doesn't say. You can have 4 mature plants or up to 1 ounce on your person.
Driving while impaired obviously remains very illegal, but Toscano says transporting marijuana is a sticky subject too. The law says drivers cannot have a, quote, open container of marijuana visible inside their vehicle.
You read the law, an open container is anything other than a container that the manufacturer has provided. But again, we don't have a manufacturer, so I don't know where you're going to get that manufactured container.
Some advocates are advising locking marijuana containers in trunks or glove boxes especially since under the new law, the odor of cannabis no longer a reason for police to stop someone.
So that's a big difference. The police, at least for the city and local state police in Virginia, have been informed not to do a search or stop for that reason.
Toscano thinks Virginia's legalization effort is a good start, but she's still advising clients like this.
What we do know is July 1st, the law is clear that it is illegal to smoke marijuana in public, to have your plants visible by the public, to have an open container in your car. So I would suggest you just don't have it in the public.
A reminder, marijuana does remain illegal on the federal level. Toscano says it's just good to keep that in mind. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
Thank you, Jake. And you can find Jake's full interview on our website, WTVR.com. And you can also...
Hey there, it's around 8:30 and I'm Jake Burns. I'm actually off today, but I have a little bit of a helper here to give you a look at what we're seeing near our neighborhood here near Maymont. You can see most of the roads look pretty good, honestly. We actually took a brief little stroll out there just a second ago, and those roadways are just wet at this point, but you can start to see some of the ice build up on trees and vegetation all the way around here. In fact, this big tree right across the street, a second ago, the wind blew pretty hard, and we could hear all of the ice clanking together up in the upper branches of those trees. That is obviously going to be a major issue for folks moving forward with this storm. All of the cars along the street here, again near Maymont in downtown Richmond, they obviously look wet from here, but when you go down and touch them, that is just ice accumulation that's happening all over the place right now, and expected, as our meteorologists have been telling you, to get worse in the hours to come. So our best advice is just to stay at home for now and hunker down as the rain begins to pick up, and we'll make sure that we're safe. We're going to go ahead inside and get warm. Hey there, it's around 8:30 and I'm Jake Burns. I'm actually off today, but I have a little bit of a helper here to give you a look at what we're seeing near our neighborhood here near Maymont. You can see most of the roads look pretty good, honestly. We actually took a brief little stroll out there just a second ago, and those roadways are just wet at this point, but you can start to see some of the ice build up on trees and vegetation all the way around here. In fact, this big tree right across the street, a second ago, the wind blew pretty hard, and we could hear all of the ice clanking together up in the upper branches of those trees. That is obviously going to be a major issue for folks moving forward with this storm. All of the cars along the street here, again near Maymont in downtown Richmond, they obviously look wet from here, but when you go down and touch them, that is just ice accumulation that's happening all over the place right now, and expected, as our meteorologists have been telling you, to get worse in the hours to come. So our best advice is just to stay at home for now and hunker down as the rain begins to pick up, and we'll make sure that we're safe. We're going to go ahead inside and get warm. Well, Julian and Candace, you will not be able to find marijuana seeds here at this shop in Scott's Addition come July 1st, when simple possession of marijuana does become legal. That's because of the way the new state law is written. But they are, as you mentioned, seeing a boom in customers asking for advice.
You get little pockets like this that just scare me.
Defoliating in the green room, a Zen act for Christopher Haney.
The leaf doesn't need to be there, then it goes away. It makes me happy.
The co-founder of Happy Trees Agricultural Supply, working here with locally sourced tomato plants.
These ones with this potato leaf pattern are a pink brandy wine.
Minus the tomato seeds. This setup serves as a display for how to grow marijuana at home. But even after simple possession of cannabis becomes legal in Virginia July 1st, you will not find it here.
No marijuana will be grown here until the Cannabis Control Authority releases strict regulations and we get a license.
Under Virginia's legalization laws, home cultivation of 4 marijuana plants will be allowed as long as they're labeled, out of sight, and out of reach from kids.
Business has been doubling month over month, and we have a lot of people excited to get into this sector.
Happy Tree's other co-founder, Josiah Ickes, says they've been flooded with customers and questions.
There was this elderly couple, and they actually came in, and all they did, they dropped a newspaper down that said marijuana legalization on it, and then they just stared at me. And it was kind of like, it was really interesting because it was like they didn't know what to do next. And that's how a lot of people in the Commonwealth are.
A key component is that selling marijuana seeds will still be illegal July 1st, as will transporting them across state lines. Users must gift less than an ounce in private, only to someone 21 years or older.
What we don't want in Virginia is people who think they're doing the right thing to inadvertently break the law and get in trouble for it.
Happy Trees is happy to teach techniques and sell equipment.
It's going to look nice.
But that's where, for now, their marijuana business ends.
It's incumbent on us as responsible adults, now that cannabis is legal in Virginia, to follow the rules. I've never been much of a rule follower, but a lot of us have been waiting for this for a long time, so we're not going to mess it up.
Will fill your glass no matter how you pronounce it.
Curious about beer names or which ones work great during pending ice storms?
Rye Stout, it's 10%. Keep you warm in the cold weather.
Joe Sullivan says Ardent and Scott's Addition is your spot. As a brewery owner, he's personally curious to see what comes of a bill just passed by the General Assembly that would allow outdoor refreshment areas.
But I think as time's gone by, we've realized people have an appetite for this now. We all like being outside.
Henrico Senator Siobhan Donovan sponsored the bill. It would allow cities and counties to designate districts where people could purchase alcohol at one store and take it with them to drink while walking or shopping at other places within that same area.
And they would be able to set up these licenses in areas where maybe there's a coalition of a bunch of different restaurants and bars and just a really thriving area, but they would be able to use the outdoor space in that area in between all of those small businesses.
The idea was born out of COVID-related ABC changes, and Donovan says places like Willow Lawn or Scott's Addition would be candidates. Cities and counties would be required to establish regulations within the outdoor refreshment area.
That's why it's great that it's an ordinance process, because ordinance processes require interaction and public comment.
Back at Ardent, Sullivan says the idea sounds great for smaller towns trying to reignite tourism, but he has reservations about how it would play out in urban settings like Scott's Addition.
You know, our business model is about creating an experience here in our own tap room and a connection with the brewery and the beer that we make here. So, you know, just selling beer to go so people can ramble around the neighborhood doesn't necessarily help our bottom line.
Concerns over liability, sanitation, and public safety would have to lead the conversation, Sullivan says.
There might be a way in some areas that to do it in which everyone benefits and the city is happy, the residents are happy. It really depends on that open conversation and what ultimately the final rules are.
The bill has now cleared both the House of Delegates and the state Senate and heads to the governor's office for review. Working for you in Scott's Addition, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
She's an amazing, sweet little girl.
12-year-old Lacey lives in Texas. Her aunt, April O'Quinn, is an EMT in Richmond.
She tells everybody about me all the time.
Lacey may tell others about how her aunt saves lives, but it wasn't until after the fact she told April about something big.
Got a phone call from Lacey that told me she had nominated me for a contest.
The popular American Girl Dolls ran a nationwide contest asking families to submit their frontline heroes, people risking their own safety to help others during the COVID-19 health emergency.
I had no words. I ended up crying because I couldn't even say anything.
Last month, April found out from Lacey they'd won.
The stars and brightness in her face and eyes was amazing. It was all worth the pictures, even though I hate pictures.
April is now one of 5 heroes nationwide. American Girl turned into a custom doll, celebrating their service.
Just, you know, honoring people that are out there every day doing what we've done in the past and continue to do today, even though the risk of catching this crazy disease is still there.
April's story likely caught the eye of the contest judges because she knows that risk personally. She caught COVID-19 in March and missed a month of work.
The lung problems was probably like the worst part for me, just not being able, I couldn't lay down. I had to sit up. I slept sitting up. I feel very fortunate that I only have the minor problems I have and I can be back to work.
Emergency medical services seemed like a perfect fit for April, and she didn't hesitate returning to work once doctors gave the okay.
I like to get in there, help people, make them feel better, and step back into the dark, you know?
She's a bit uncomfortable with all the attention, despite thousands of messages of support since word of her doll went public.
The stigmatism of it's a man's world, you know, with EMS. I'm here to show you and prove to you it's not.
Really though, the review she cares about the most is holding on to her doll, thousands of miles away.
It'll be something that neither one of us will ever forget. It's a bond that, you know, that I'll hold with her forever.
Gotta work on Super Bowl Sunday, gotta eat well. I get the wings, Tracy gets the chips, Alex gets the dips, same every year. Dun, da, 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 da. Super Bowl party! Yeah, better safe than sorry. More wings for me. Da, 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 da. Well, Bill and Julie, this zero fare policy was born out of the pandemic, and GRTC says when they studied ridership data, it was very clear the impact it was having on essential workers.
Like with the bus, I was able to do grocery shopping, get more stuff, but then also volunteering, which has been really great.
Just a few benefits wedged into both of those. He's continuing now that GRTC is going fareless until next summer.
Having a bus system that's like free is like kind of a game changer for a lot of people. And like you can hop on different buses and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. I really think it's important for everyone to have like a sense of like a transportation method that's like open to everybody.
GRTC says they got enough federal and state COVID relief funding to cover the $5 to $6 million of their operating budget that ride fares covered in pre-pandemic years.
The majority of our fares were collected from low-income riders who were purchasing their rides one at a time or by the day.
GRTC was studying ridership data during the pandemic, and although their overall numbers slipped, routes that passed through historically economic disadvantaged communities did not.
Transportation is a huge part of so many of our riders' budgets for their home. And what we have seen is that when you remove that barrier, our ridership has actually rebounded faster than most of our peer transit systems who reinstituted fare collection.
Data like this points to a broader national conversation in metro regions. Should public transit be free to the public? Critics say all taxpayers would be paying for something that they might not use. Opponents say transit access expands economic mobility. For now, GRTC's zero fare policy goes through next July. Where does it go from here? Does it continue after that possibly? What are those conversations?
Well, GRTC is already having these conversations with our local and state partners about what's next.
The transit company says they're exploring a new state pilot program to extend zero fare past July 2022, but those talks are in the early stages.
After the pandemic hit, I lost my job.
Free bus rides have been huge for Armani Bird the past year.
I went to job interviews. I actually have 2 or 3 jobs now. I have my own little personal tutoring business, and then I work over here at the restaurant in Burlington, so I commute regularly.
She thinks the economic benefits of free transportation post-pandemic could help on a personal and macroeconomic scale.
Most people who live in low-income areas use the system, and so it'll be a big help for them. And why not help those areas? We're talking about people who get to pick up for daycare, for jobs. Things opening back up, I can see people coming out more, being able to interact in the community and put those funds back into the community. So if people have free transportation, they'll be able to come out and spend the money at the businesses.
Rose Pace says that ridership levels with GRTC are beginning to approach pre-pandemic levels once again. Working for you in Henrico, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.